Nobody watching Designing Women in the 1980s could have predicted what would happen to this cast. Because behind the laughter, one actress was being mocked on magazine covers almost weekly. Another would become more famous in her 70s than she ever was on the sitcom. And one beloved cast member disappeared from Hollywood almost completely. But the strangest story of all? The woman who played television's fiercest feminist icon reportedly negotiated with producers to let her sing on the show, just so she could tolerate delivering the political speeches. And somehow, that's only the beginning. If you grew up watching Designing Women, subscribe because some of these stories are unbelievable. Before the scandals and disappearances, there was Sugarbaker Associates, an Atlanta design firm filled with sharp Southern sarcasm, chaos, and some of the most memorable monologues of the entire 1980s. Designing Women premiered in 1986, and at first glance, it looked like a traditional sitcom, but it didn't feel like one. The women were louder, sharper, meaner, funnier, and somehow comforting at the same time. Julia Sugarbaker could verbally destroy someone in under 30 seconds. Suzanne acted like every room was a beauty pageant she'd already won. Charlene floated through conversations with total innocence. And Mary Jo felt like the only person reacting normally to the insanity around her. Then there was Anthony, originally introduced as a small side character, who slowly became one of the emotional anchors of the entire show. And that chemistry turned Designing Women into one of CBS's biggest hits. But looking back now, that office almost feels strange, because every week, the audience assumed everything inside those walls would stay the same forever. In real life, almost none of it did. And the first person who shattered that illusion was Dixie Carter. To millions of viewers, Dixie Carter was Julia Sugarbaker. Elegant, fearless, sharp enough to dismantle anyone with a single speech. Julia became one of television's defining feminist characters. But behind the scenes, there was a contradiction viewers never knew about. Because Dixie Carter herself was reportedly far more conservative politically than her character, which created an awkward problem. She was becoming famous for speeches she didn't even personally agree with. And eventually, according to creator Linda Bloodworth Thomason, Carter made a deal. She would continue delivering Julia's political monologues if the writers occasionally let her sing in episodes. Seriously, that's one of the strangest backstage negotiations in sitcom history. Imagine becoming famous for fiery feminist speeches while privately bargaining for musical numbers. And weirdly, audiences loved Julia Sugarbaker even more. But the role became so iconic that viewers struggled separating Carter from the character afterward. Which is why her later reinvention surprised so many people, because younger audiences suddenly discovered her in a completely different role. Not as a classy Southern heroine, but as Gloria Hodge on Desperate Housewives. Manipulative, controlling, emotionally toxic. America's elegant Southern moralist suddenly became television's nightmare mother-in-law. But away from television, another part of Carter's life stayed remarkably stable. Her marriage to legendary actor Hal Holbrook lasted for decades. And even after sitcom fame, Carter kept returning to theater stages instead of chasing another television hit. Because beneath Julia Sugarbaker's success, she still wanted to prove herself as a serious, dramatic actress. But sadly, her final years became much harder. In 2010, Dixie Carter died following complications from endometrial cancer. And for many fans, the news felt shocking, because Julia Sugarbaker always seemed indestructible. That's the strange thing about sitcom nostalgia. The characters freeze in time, but the people playing them don't. And while Dixie Carter was privately dealing with health struggles, another Designing Women star was fighting a completely different battle, one that played out publicly in front of millions of people. Delta Burke, Suzanne Sugarbaker herself. Delta Burke was supposed to be the glamorous one. On Designing Women, Suzanne Sugarbaker walked into every room like she already owned it. Former beauty queen, constant attention seeker, completely convinced she was the most attractive person in Atlanta. And honestly, Half the comedy came from how absurdly confident she was. But while audiences laughed at Suzanne's vanity, Delta Burke was becoming the target of one of the cruelest tabloid frenzies of the entire 1990s. And it happened while the show was still hugely successful. By the late 1980s, magazines had become obsessed with Burke's weight gain. Some covers treated her appearance like a national scandal. Talk shows mocked her openly. Entertainment reporters dissected her body constantly. Looking back now, it feels unbelievably harsh, especially because Burke later admitted she was privately struggling with depression, panic attacks, emotional eating, and severe insecurity at the exact same time. America watched Suzanne Sugarbaker acting larger than life every week, while the actress playing her felt devastated behind the scenes. And eventually, the tension reportedly exploded on set. Burke later claimed she felt humiliated over her appearance. Suddenly, one of television's funniest sitcoms was surrounded by backstage controversy. But on camera, Suzanne still looked untouchable. Her eventual departure from Designing Women became one of television's biggest behind-the-scenes stories. And afterward, her career never fully recovered. She briefly starred in her own sitcom, Delta, but it faded quickly. Then something strange happened. One of the most recognizable women on television slowly disappeared from Hollywood almost entirely, which still shocks longtime fans, because during Designing Women's peak, Delta Burke felt everywhere. But through all of it, one part of her life stayed stable: her marriage to actor Gerald McRaney. While tabloids mocked Burke relentlessly, McRaney defended her publicly again and again. At one point, he admitted how furious he became watching people ridicule his wife over her appearance. And honestly, that may be the most human part of her story, because in the middle of all the cruelty, someone still stayed beside her for decades. Later in life, Burke dealt with diabetes and chronic health problems, and over time, she stepped further away from fame entirely. Today, many fans are stunned by how completely she vanished from the spotlight. Inside the Sugarbaker office, everything always snapped back into place by the end of the episode. In real life, nothing was that simple. And strangely, the cast member who seemed the least flashy at the time may have ended up building the strongest life after the show. Annie Potts. Annie Potts never seemed like the obvious breakout star of Designing Women. She wasn't the loudest or the flashiest. Mary Jo Shively felt more grounded than the other characters. Divorced, overworked, constantly stressed, usually reacting to the chaos around her like an actual human being, which made her strangely relatable. But what many viewers never knew was that Annie Potts had already survived something terrifying long before Designing Women ever started. In her 20s, Potts was involved in a devastating car accident that left her with multiple broken bones and severe leg injuries. The recovery took months, and for a while, even walking became difficult. Potts later admitted the accident permanently changed how she saw herself and her career, which adds a completely different layer to her presence on screen. Because while the other cast members often felt larger than life, Mary Jo always felt human. And unlike several of her co-stars, Potts quietly mastered something extremely difficult in Hollywood: longevity. In the 1980s, audiences knew her from Ghostbusters and Designing Women. In the 1990s, kids recognized her as the voice of Bo Peep in Toy Story. Then, decades later, she returned again as Meemaw on Young Sheldon. Most sitcom actors become attached to one nostalgic moment forever. Annie Potts somehow found 3 different generations of fans. And while other sitcom stars slowly faded from television, Potts just kept quietly showing up in hit after hit. Because Annie Potts may not have seemed like the biggest star during the show's original run, but she may have built the healthiest and most stable life afterward. If you want to support the channel, there are links in the description below. And then there's Jean Smart. Because nobody watching Designing Women in 1987 would have predicted what happened next to her career. Jean Smart may have had the most unexpected transformation of anyone from Designing Women. Because during the show's original run, Charlene Frazier was sweet, awkward, innocent, and almost painfully polite. She felt like the last person anyone would expect to someday dominate prestige television dramas. But that's exactly what happened. During the series, Smart met actor Richard Gilliland after he guest starred as Charlene's boyfriend. And according to longtime Hollywood stories, there was one awkward complication. Delta Burke reportedly had interest in Gilliland first, which sounds exactly like the kind of thing that should have created years of cast drama. Instead, Jean Smart and Richard Gilliland stayed married for decades. Meanwhile, Smart slowly reinvented herself on screen. Then suddenly, everything changed. Fargo, Mayor of Easttown, Hacks. One role after another transformed Jean Smart into one of television's most acclaimed actresses. And the reversal is kind of unbelievable. The cast member audiences probably underestimated most in 1987 eventually became the actress winning Emmys decades after viewers stopped expecting it. But just as her career reached a new level, her personal life was hit by tragedy. In 2021, Richard Gilliland died unexpectedly. And while Jean Smart was winning awards and receiving the best reviews of her career, she was privately grieving the person who had been beside her since the Designing Women years. At one point, she admitted she returned to work quickly, partly because she didn't know what else to do. And honestly, that may be the most unexpected outcome of the entire cast. Not Suzanne, not Julia, Charlene. The shy, innocent receptionist became the Emmy-winning powerhouse nobody saw coming. And then there was Meshach Taylor, the actor who wasn't even supposed to become important to the show at all. Meshach Taylor wasn't even supposed to become one of the main parts of Designing Women. When Anthony Bouvier first appeared on the show, he was basically intended as a temporary side character, but audiences immediately connected with him, because Anthony felt different from a lot of sitcom supporting characters at the time. There was warmth to him, patience, a quiet, emotional intelligence, and his chemistry with the women worked so naturally that producers kept expanding the role, until eventually, it became impossible to imagine the show without him, which mattered culturally too. In many sitcoms of the 1980s, black male characters were often pushed to the background. Anthony wasn't. He became part of the emotional center of the series, not just comic relief, part of the family. And over time, Anthony became one of the most comforting presences inside the Sugarbaker office. After Designing Women ended, Meshach Taylor continued working steadily in television and stage productions. But he never quite found another role audiences connected with the same way. Then, years later, fans were blindsided by heartbreaking news. Taylor had been privately battling colorectal cancer, and many viewers had no idea he was even sick before his death in 2014, which made the loss feel strangely sudden for longtime fans. Because Anthony always felt steady, warm, constant. And looking back now, the Sugarbaker office almost feels incomplete without him. That's the strange thing about revisiting Designing Women decades later. At the time, the show felt funny, chaotic, and permanent. But outside that office, the real lives behind the sitcom became far more complicated than audiences ever realized. One cast member disappeared from Hollywood almost entirely. One quietly became one of television's most respected actresses decades later. And two beloved stars are now gone. But somehow, that little design office still survives exactly the same way people remember it, frozen in time. But this wasn't the only cast whose story took a surprising turn. Some of the biggest shows of the 90s had behind-the-scenes moments that completely changed their legacy. And one of them is even more shocking than this. If you think this story was unexpected, wait until you see what happened next. Click the video on your screen now. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, which Designing Women cast story surprised you the most?